Pravita Prabhakar, if I've said that right, then great. If not, I apologize. Is in game. You can see some of the obviously the abilities, blah blah blah. But the synergy is interesting, mainly because we could be seeing a potential Spider-Verse champion come into the game at a later date. If you're familiar with Across the Spider-Verse, you'll know that there is a moment that a lot of characters have been kind of like they're there as part of the Spider Society, but also the kind of build up, the getaway, without spoiling anything about the film, the getaway featuring several characters, but also the interactions, Pravita, as well as I think it's Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales, which are, you can see there, like Miles actually features in the synergies of this, but they are featured as well as Spider-Punk in that particular, in a rescue mission. And I can get still actually. It's this one here. It's the one in the Rescue in Mumbattan. For those that haven't seen it, don't know what I'm talking about. I think some people know. Obviously, it's those three key characters. But it's what could be the future with the question marks around this one right here. So this synergy is called Rescue Mission Distraction. When the opponent, blah, 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 blah. That's not the point, the important thing, but it's the coming soon. All of these, as listed by Kabam, are, which you probably can see there, right there, they're all listed as Spider-Verse heroes. So where does this, or what does this open up with potential options that could be coming into game? I'm sure some people will say there's a glaring and blaringly obvious one, and I think there is that we could go, yeah, spoiler alert, it could be something like Spider-Man Noir. It could, but it could be some other options, and I don't want to kind of put all my eggs in one basket because there could be others. Now, because they're in the synergy, there is a Spider-Ham. It does mean that there would be characters that maybe aren't necessarily associated directly with what happened in the events of Across the Spider-Verse. And yes, Spider-Punk is in there, Rich. Yes, I do get that. But Spider-Ham being in there, there's only one character that could be, and that is someone a part of the Spider Society and then the ex-Spider Society team that is featured in the film that is not featured or hasn't been featured in game yet. And that is actually Byte. Now, do I think that Margot Kess is actually going to be in the game? Unlikely. I think this is unlikely because Kabam and as well other types, if you know your Marvel, not cinematic, because this isn't Marvel Cinematic, but Spider's universe. I don't know if it's called, what's called, it's called this, yeah, that's part of the Sony Spider universe. You'll know that there's something dropping in 2026, which I personally think is the most logical, but I will entertain the other options because there was actually 52 other characters that were in Spider Across the Spider-Verse. Like a version of Spider-Woman Jessica Drew, which we already have in game. You could say, oh, what about Peter B. Parker? Well, what's the point? We already have a Spider-Man in game. There's also Spider-Rex, which I don't want to entertain that, but we do have Spider-Ham. There's Spider-Cat, same reason. Spider-Monkey, but it was a bit part, like, what's the point? Web-Slinger, possible, but I don't think so. Bombastic Bagman, and I'm definitely not explaining any of that stuff. If you've played Marvel Rivals, I think you'd understand something about it. There's also an interesting Malala Windsor Spider UK. There's also, of course, the Brian Braddock Spider-Man, and I don't want to get into any of these kind of territories. But there is a character of interest which could be Scarlet Spider, and I'm going to leave that as a kind of like a little thought with yourselves. But if I was going to be looking at something that actually featured, and I said that could have been a good tie-in, it would unfortunately go with Margot Kess. Since she was entered into the Marvel Universe in October of 2018, I mean, look, we come at a time where like cyberspace and the idea that people spend most of their time in cyberspace. Yeah, okay, cool. And Spider-Byte being a relatively cool character, but it's not as substantial and doesn't have that kind of cinematic tie-in that the character that I think is more than likely coming into the game. So, of course, it's got to be Spider-Man Noir, let's face it. Ham features in this little synergy. Yes, you could say, well, that's not really meaning anything. Yeah, well, fair enough. But with Spider-Man Noir, with next year actually having a mini-series that's going to be on Prime, if you didn't know that already, featuring Nicolas Cage, then the tie-in looks good. Kabam like to put in characters before their actual cinematic releases. This is why you've seen that several times. Yes, Kabam used to do tie-ins with movies and TV shows that just kind of like synergize together, but a lot of time you'll find that some of the characters are kind of more pre-released. There are some exceptions to that, and that was with Kate Bishop, which I think came in after the release of the Hawkeye TV series, but a lot of the time they're kind of up ahead of things. Sentry is a good example. Sentry came out before the actual version of in the movies and stuff. And yes, they have gone for more comic book versions to be released before, say, the cinematic kind of versions, as a kind of like a new rite of passage. Namor is another great example that came out before the film, this sequel to Black Panther was released. Oh, so much time could have passed in the world in the MCU. But yeah, that just makes more sense to me that that is actually going to be that. I think to myself, why did I never read Spider-Man Noir comics? Because I think I'd be more interested. I'm not a huge fan of Spider-Man, but I'm more of a fan of, like, saying that I do have like a #1 Amazing Spider-Man. So I'm like, not like the proper rare stuff, but like a rare kind of like comic book itself. But I think I'd resonate more with this character. I mean, it's like it's got like a background that's a little bit similar to Indiana Jones. Not completely, but it's got these similar kind of things. Like a particular antique of a spider idol broke open and released a horde of spiders. One of the spiders bit Peter, causing him to pass out and dream of Spider God. After waking up, Peter discovered he possessed the arachnid powers. Donning the mask, Peter confronted Norman Osborn, blah, 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 blah. And it's got stuff that's then kind of like World War I era. And then I think stuff to do like Nazi Germany. So there's some really kind of interesting kind of tie-ins, but more in a kind of early period of the 20th century, which again, just pretty darn cool. He's also one of the Spider-Verse versions that emits the webs from his actual wrists, shoot organic webbing out of his wrists. And this webbing is black in color, which is really cool because they had the tie into that in the Across the Spider-Verse. No, sorry, the first one is Into the Spider-Verse. So that, yeah, just nice little things. And it's less about tech. I like that because it means that this character would be either, would it be, this is, I think to me, I mean, put in the comments, if Spider-Man Noir comes into game, what would he be? My feeling is it's more skill-based. And you might say, like, oh, would it be science? But then the origin's a bit off. It's a bit weird. It's more like Stealth Suit Spider-Man, because Stealth Suit Spider-Man is more this kind of, well, he's just wearing tactical clothing rather than any kind of like tech that he's got on him, apart from the goggles. But I don't know, I kind of feel it's more like a skill-based character than it would be something like a science-based. I could have that wrong. But then the powers given to him, would that be more from Spider-God? Would that be more mystical, if anything? The same way that you look at Pravita and look to that as well. But this is also interesting because I obviously scroll down Rich, find out some more stuff. He actually has more things that are more kind of gunplay orientated, and things like incendiary grenades, Thompson machine gun, revolvers, and pistol, because he's got a gun holster, 2 gun holsters on his person. So is that something that could come into game if that's something that Kabam want to go down that route of? Either way, I thought this was very interesting to kind of learn a bit more, because as I said, I'm surprised that I didn't take much more time to kind of learn. And maybe that's something for me to do. Like, maybe I'm going to go away and kind of get some Spider-Man Noir comic books and kind of like learn up and also enjoy the art style. That kind of very much kind of black and white, but also that turn of the century type date period that's very much kind of between the wars of like World War I, World War II, and stuff like that. So yeah. That's gonna be it for the video. But do you think that Spider-Man Noir will be coming to game, or do you think that's not possible and you think it's going to be Byte or another character, maybe even Scarlet Spider? Thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Check out some other content located on screen. I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.